Hello, I'm Meghann Scully and welcome to Re-Energise, a show that looks at sustainability in all its forms and what we can do to shape a clean energy future. On this episode, we're chatting about food and, in particular, food waste. How often do you pile on everything at a hotel buffet only to realise you're maybe not quite going to finish all of it? Do you ever wonder how much food we, as a country, throw out every year? As we'll find out, it's a lot. I'm here at producer Connor.
Hi, Meghann.
And we had a lot on our plate this episode, but we had three very qualified guests to help us tackle it. Maurice Mc Geehan is head performance chef for the IRFU. He can also be found online as the No Waste Chef. Liam Murphy is the country manager for Positive Carbon, who are doing amazing things with smart tracking technology. And Niall Sabongi is a chef and restaurant owner, as well as the founder of Sustainable Seafood Ireland.
So, Meghann, there were a lot of pretty shocking statistics in this about food waste, wasn't there? It's absolutely crazy.
It's kind of terrible how much food we waste in this country.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it wasn't shocking when you kind of just think about it, the amount of food you throw out yourself that you, like you say, you know, in hotels and restaurants and all this kind of stuff. It's maybe not surprising, but it's still crazy.
After this, I actually have stayed in hotels since with work, and I have been making better choices at the hotel buffet. Like, I think a hotel breakfast buffet is one of my favourite things about staying in a hotel. Yeah. But I am trying to make clever choices. Do I need that many sausages and rashers? Probably not. So I created No Waste. Very proud of myself.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, I like the way we kind of had the two sides, because obviously Liam is talking about it's not about the consumer, it's about the chefs and then how they can kind of measure and the technology that'll help kind of reduce waste on that end, which as well just saves loads of money for the restaurants. And then Maurice is great because he's talking about, you know, he's doing this at a really high level, but there was definitely loads of good tips and stuff for, you know, your average home cook.
Well, I got loads of tips off him, and I don't know if I told you this, but I happened to be in the IRFU High Performance Centre after we chatted to him here, and he showed me the kitchen and he showed me all that no waste and the way he kind of turns waste into food to use again. Honestly, it was one of the coolest kitchens I've ever seen. Yeah.
I loved that interview. It was so interesting. And I was definitely trying to bring in a few of his tips for cooking at home as well. So then obviously we had the two guests talking about food waste. And we also talked to Niall, who is involved in so many different aspects of fish in Ireland and sustainability around seafood. And, you know, he was talking about waste as well, you know, thinking about which fish we eat and also eating all of the fish that you order.
Absolutely. And I think I actually love seafood, and anytime I wouldn't have thought about it before speaking to Niall, but now since speaking to him and kind of learning more about it, I kind of try make like wiser choices when I'm ordering seafood, that I can order something that perhaps I can pretty much eat like everything that's in front of me and effectively have no waste.
Well, there you go. So will we head over to the No Waste Chef then?
Maurice, it's great to chat to you here. You are obviously a chef, an author, the No Food Waste Chef, and you've done so much. You've lived around in the UK, Brazil. Amazing, amazing career. But I have to, straight away, the first thing I have to ask you is, what are you feeding the Irish rugby team?
It's all good. It's all fresh food, as much Irish as we can. We try to make the food as exciting as possible as well. It creates a great interest. It's hard work, but if you're going to make anything good, you need to put the effort into it. And we make everything from scratch. And that's the hard part of it. But you can notice a difference in the final dish that goes on, you know, as we serve it, you know, as they're eating it, the feedback, you know, makes it all worthwhile. Like, so putting that effort into food, like, so.
It's amazing to see the way that sport has gone, because diet now is just as important as physical health as well in terms of these athletes. And, you know, it's coming into every sport now.
I think in the old days, people think of performance food, performance catering, what the players and athletes eat is like boiled rice, brown rice, steamed chicken, kind of boring stuff. And now we're looking at really giving the players really good food, but with the functionality to it. You know, and I work closely with the performance nutritionists to make sure that on my menus I have what the players need for that duration or that point in time, you know, be it a pre-fuel, recovery lunch or recovery post-training snack as well, or anti-inflammatory days, or where we're going into high intensity, where it be high carbohydrate for fueling, stuff like that. But really what I'm doing now is I'm putting enjoyment into the functionality side of it. So, and I suppose it's yielding good results.
Absolutely. I mean, they're not the best team in the world for no reason. It's incredible. And of course then, I'd imagine with the Irish rugby team, there probably isn't much food waste, but I assume it's still.
No.
But tell us more about your about having no waste in that project.
So our food waste is really, really good in the IRFU. I suppose if you want to kind of go back to some pretext, when I came over to Ireland first, I joined Airbnb, and I was the first chef in the company in Ireland. So we were part of Airbnb. We weren't contractors. Which that gave us a lot of power internally, where we could decide what we wanted to do, what direction we wanted to take the food program. And we looked at it at an ethical side, and a moral side, a sustainable side, and we looked at ethical produce, sustainable produce, seasonal, but we looked at food waste as well. So 5 years building the food program there. When I went into the IRFU, and I've been with the IRFU now just over 5 years, I continued to build that there. Now, on a much smaller scale, when I left Airbnb, we were doing 600 a day across the two buildings. But that doesn't mean, scalability is one thing, but if you have your techniques, it doesn't matter what the scale is. So I kept developing what I did in the Airbnb and the IRFU, where we would bring everything in. As I said, we bring in produce whole. We would look at using everything, the leaves, the peeling skins, cores, everything. So, and we look at ways where we could inform the players. And I think food education for the players is very important. And part of that food education, what I want to do is bring in the sustainability part for it. So we do a lot of pickling, fermentation, preserving, infusing. And we put jars, we put them from the centre. So when the guys come in, they'll look at it and go, some will go, what the hell is that like? But they will look at it, and then the questions will come, and and I think is the why. Would be the why are we doing this, and then we explain the how, our methods behind it, and what results it would yield, and that would create a lot of interest. So it worked off. Then we developed, we kept going. It's about keeping that momentum going. And I think when you're looking at food waste, one of the things you need to look at is your produce has to be fresh. It has to be fresh as possibly can coming into you, especially when you're starting to use the byproducts. When you get your byproducts in, when you get that produce into your kitchen and you've peeled it, you've trimmed it, it's all about changing chefs' mindsets into looking at these byproducts and treating them with the same respect as you would the core ingredient of it. Now, that could be anything from celeriac to beetroot, it could be cauliflower, broccoli. But once you trim off those leaves from the broccoli and you're left with the stem, you have the florets here. We start looking at the cauliflower leaves, and we treat them the same respect as we would if we had the cauliflower florets. We'd also start processing them different ways, where we start fermenting, pickling, we start shredding them up into stir fries. I mean, there's been a few services in IRFU where all my veg have been byproducts, be it broccoli stems, cauliflower leaves, and they're perfect for Asian menus. So if we're doing a beef rendang, we could do some stir fries with it as well. That would be all byproducts. So we accumulate it. But at that point, when we're in the kitchen, we need to preserve it. We have a couple of ways of doing it. One is dehydrating, one is fermenting, pickling, and then even freezing. And it's about accumulating. Sometimes we haven't enough, so we start accumulating what we have. And once we have enough, then we would find use for it.
Because I think that was one thing, I suppose, even I wasn't, I didn't realise the amount of items like that we have that we think is waste, but actually, in fact, it can be reused. I think maybe there's a real lack of education in home houses for that. Yeah.
And I think, there's two different types of food waste. You have the avoidable, and the avoidable would be, in a restaurant scenario, would be plate waste, which would be 38% of a restaurant's food waste. And then you'll have cancelled bookings, overproducing, too many dishes on the menu, unpopular dishes on the menu. And then you have the non-avoidable. Now, the non-avoidable food waste is the food waste that I've been focusing on for the last while, is where I've been looking at and kind of developing techniques where we can use the non-avoidable, but you have to put it through a different process, each one. And we're looking at where we're using kale stalks. Most of these items are tough and fibrous. Beetroot skins, spinach stalks, onion skins. But if you put them through a process of dehydrating, and then you grind them into powders, you're then breaking down that fibre, and you can use that in many different applications, be it bread, dips, salads, seasonings. You can put them into anything. So and then you don't have to worry about them being perishable because you've already dehydrated them. So you can leave them in the store and take them out when you want to use them. And that's the point of preservation. That allows me time to accumulate, but also decide where I'm going to put it. But we also have a carte blanche approach to our menus as well, and flexibility is key, is that we can change a menu the day before. We can even change the menu slightly on that day. And I think that's so important when it comes to food waste, to have that flexibility.
That's amazing. I didn't even think about that with the dehydration.
I suppose you're kind of marrying performance catering, performance nutrition with sustainability. When you take the functional parts that would normally get thrown in the bin and you find a process and application where you can use them and deliver them to the players. Yeah.
I suppose when you were working in restaurants, was that where the kind of the food waste became is that when it came to the fore for you? Because I think for restaurants it must be really difficult because of, as you mentioned, cancelling tables, probably ordering into a certain amount of food, not having enough food, or not having too much food, and then a lot of plates going back, maybe half eaten.
Yeah, it really did. And I was in London really, that it really opened my eyes. And when I went into fine dining and I seen the amount of waste that was in fine dining, and it broke my heart to see lovely produce that you may use just one part of a vegetable and the rest just goes, or one part of a fish. There's nowhere else to put it because it's a fine dining restaurant and you have maybe 40, 60 seats. It's not like you have another part of your business that you could process it and create menus that way. And some large corporate organizations I worked in as well had these, well, I can only describe them as garbage disposals. You know, I spent a bit of time in America, and a lot of the homes in America would have the thing at the sink with the blender and the tap going in. They would just throw the food waste into there. And I seen industrial ones of them in large corporate places in London, and the amount of food I seen going into there was just absolutely criminal. And it always the question every day I looked at it is just, there has to be another way. There has to be another way. Why are we doing this? So I always looked at food waste in a different way, probably because growing up, and my dad would always give out to me if I didn't eat all my dinner, and I didn't really understand. He would always say like, oh, when I was young, like I didn't have food, and he lived through the Second World War, and he actually knew what hunger was. And those kind of things always kind of stayed with me. And it wasn't until I got older that really resonated with me that he was absolutely right. We shouldn't waste anything. We should take what we want, but eat all we take, you know, in anything we do. And that was one side of it. And then, as I said, what was happening in London when we're looking at all that food waste there as well. And then I just started looking at it. When I did have my restaurant in Brazil, I was my own boss. And then, you know, it's hard. Sometimes it's hard for chefs to change because the restaurant owners mightn't understand. Or the restaurant owners, they'd be looking at margins, they'd be looking at labour, they're looking at, you know, the bottom line, which is operational costs. And, you know, when I was there, I started looking at making everything from scratch, and everything that was left over from my processes, I would find different uses for. And I found it as a challenge, and looked at it as a challenge, and I started developing from then on. And then when I went into Airbnb, it was where they understood, they knew, and it was just like the perfect marriage. So from that point onwards, we developed a food program, seasonal. We had like 54 different nationalities in the office, so we cooked the food as authentic as we could there. And then we started looking at ways where all the fresh produce that we would have, how can we process it? So we designed a craft program there where we had one chef that just really dealt with, done a few things, but one main thing they were doing was to deal with the byproducts that we had from our food production kitchens. We were on 3 sites at one stage. So everything would get brought to them. It would get processed. Oh my God, like if you talk about pineapples, we went through 50, 60 kilos a week. But the amount of skins we would have, we had a 400 litre boiler. So we'd make tea out of the skins and add a little bit of ginger into it.
Oh, yeah.
The natural sugar from the pineapple, we didn't have to add anything else into it. So we moved those teas to drink stations around the offices then. If you take it further and reduce it, we ended up with pineapple molasses. If you had a blind taste test, pineapple molasses and pomegranate molasses, you couldn't tell the difference. So we're looking at extracting pectin from our apple trimmings, extracting the fructose from our fruit trimmings as well. We use that fructose down into our drinks program. We stopped buying in plastic bottles. We started making our own drinks, our own carbonated drinks, Coca-Colas and all that. We've done everything fresh.
Wow.
They're like from our own. So we eliminated thousands upon thousands of plastic bottles going to landfill from there. And as I said, it was just a process then where we just continued to develop it, you know. So it came to one stage where we weren't wasting really anything. And coming into the IRFU then, it was just a development on from that. And it was great because I was more hands-on. I had quite a big team in the Airbnb, where now it was just me and a few other chefs, where we can have real control on it. Like so. And we had 1 week where we had absolutely nothing going to any of the bins. And
oh my gosh,
that's like winning the lotto. It's so hard to do because there's so many different factors. Factors is plate waste. Will they eat everything? Factors is, will they take everything onto the pass? Whatever they don't take, can it be reused? Is reused, repurposed? We used it for something else in a different menu. But after that week, that was like, we had to celebrate this because this is such a rare thing to be able to do. And I've rarely done it. I've come close a few times, but it's such a hard thing to do, to have a complete zero waste. But if you're talking about zero waste as well, you need to talk about how the food comes in. Is it plastic packaging? Boxes,
Huge
cardboard, you know, so you have that. So we developed relationships with our suppliers as well, where we would use the same crates, you know, send them back, they'd pack them and send them back to us, you know. So we look at different things as that as well. Like, but
as you said, I suppose it has to start probably, I suppose, bigger and then trickle down. Or does it have to start at home maybe and trickle up?
Absolutely. I think at home is such an important place to start. And I always talk about changing your mindsets to this. And one of my things is to try and get people to change their mindsets. As I said earlier about looking at your byproducts as another ingredient, not a byproduct. Don't even call it a byproduct. Just call it the leaf. You know, so it doesn't have to be a trimming or a byproduct. It's just another part of that vegetable. And the thing is, once you can do that, you can look at other things. And my advice is to chefs always is to change things incrementally.
Yeah.
Make a few changes a week. Don't take on too much too soon because it'll clog you up and it probably won't work. If you can take a few sustainable practices and implement them week on week over a course of 6 months to a year, you should start seeing a big difference in, I suppose, your bottom line would be operational costs, would be your food waste bins. You're actually spending less taking food away. You're buying less as well because you're able to use more ingredients on your menus, where the trimmings and byproducts, as we're talking about, can be used as cross-functional. So they can go into other dishes as well. When you're looking at operational costs and chefs changing mindsets as well, if you look at a food bin, it's €3 per kilo, and you're looking at 140 litre food bin, which is €200 over a year, is 10,400.
Yeah,
if you can reduce that by 50%, that's reducing 5,000. So if you look at things like that, plus you don't have to buy as much food in, but kind of go back to changing mindsets and that. At home, actually, do you know how much Irish waste there is?
Oh God, it's probably going to upset me, is it?
No, look, I'll break it down for you because at home it's an interesting one. So if you want to hazard a guess at how many tons of food waste we have in Ireland.
As a whole?
As a whole.
Oh God, ton. I'm very bad at maths now, so we're going to...
750,000 tonnes.
750,000 tonnes.
There's tons of food waste in Ireland per year. So the EPA released a report in 2024 based on 2002 figures.
Yeah.
So this is based on all compost bins. This is based on analysis from every sector. Five main sectors. So you have the primary production, the farming. They're at 53,000 tonnes waste. And then you're looking at processing and manufacturing, which is at 230,000 tonnes. Transport and retail, so you lose a lot with transport as well. That's at 90,000 tonnes. It's just spoils.
Oh yeah, that
might take too long.
Yeah.
Well, actually, one of the main factors of why the primary production waste is horticulture, because things aren't grown to spec. So your cucumbers may be too big, or they're not the right colour, or they're not the right shape. You know, a lot of that doesn't get used because of
or the carrot doesn't look.
Exactly.
When you see a carrot that actually was organically grown in someone's farm, it's like, that doesn't look like a carrot. It's like, well, actually, that is a carrot.
No, that's exactly it, because people have a perception of what a carrot should look like.
It's so interesting because, but I just can't get over that number. That's mind blowing.
Well, 157,000 for restaurants and food service, but the home is 220,000. Wow. So for me, it's always trying to look at, can my techniques in my professional kitchen be adapted in a domestic kitchen? They absolutely can.
Yeah.
And we've been doing it at home. And I think one of the most important things is for me to have a track record of what I'm doing works, and I do. And our mindsets are completely changed, that when we're working now and we're doing this, we don't even feel it's different. We feel that this is just what we do. And it's not until we get support chefs to come into our kitchen and kind of look at, or they might be throwing something out and we'll stop them like, no, what are you throwing that out for? Like, but that was on us not to communicate that at the very start. You know, we just automatically assume sometimes we're so busy, like, and then they should know, but they don't. But they actually say that they've never seen so little going into bins and so much getting used. And it's great to benchmark where we are. But as I said, that we don't see us doing anything different because we put it into our day-to-day operations. And I firmly believe that this can be done at home too. Change is always hard to do, but as I said, small incremental changes over a period of time. If we can do it at home, we can do it for the next generation. I think it's so important that we change things now, because our young kids, just through the natural process of primary socialization, is that our children will use the same brands, they'll do the same, they'll eat the same foods as the parents mainly. Once they see that we can start cooking more at home and we save a lot of food from going into the bin, they'll look at this and go, this is the norm. And they can grow up knowing that this is normal and take these practices with them. But that's an intergenerational part of that, which is going to take an awful lot of time. But I think that's where we can make the difference. But at the moment, I think there's a lot of education, there's a lot of communication needs to going out on how we can get the families, get people at home to start the change first. But I think like it's just a simpler message is that reducing food waste is not that hard, it's not that complicated. But one of the things I do notice with reducing food waste anywhere, in professional kitchens and in domestic at home settings as well, is that you're left with something small and you're kind of looking at it and go, what the hell am I going to do with this? I'll just throw it into the compost bin. Or you're very tempted to do that every time, but if you can accumulate it and then you can use it when you have enough of it. Now, that could be heels of bread, that could be the rinds of cheeses, the rinds of Parmesan, spent citrus. I always tell everybody, listen, put a sterilised jar of rapeseed oil up. When you juice your, whatever it may be, if it's your orange, if it's your lemons, limes, put it in the oil. Make sure there's a little weight on it. Keep it under the oil. Build it up as you go. If you need to add more oil into it, add more oil into it. And then leave it for a month or two. And then you've got a citrus-infused oil. You know, that you're using the peel. Like, that's only one simple way. We can do the same with the Parmesan rinds. And then you have a Parmesan oil. And then after that, you can use the rinds. You can roast them at 220 for 10 minutes. And then they'll actually rise because or some of that oil. And they look like little cheese breads. And then you can slice them down. You can use them for gluten-free croutons. And they actually taste like a cheese bread. Like, just little techniques like this that are, you know, if you look at what's the main things being wasted in restaurants, and I'm sure it's probably similar to home, is bread, meat and potatoes.
But it's funny you say that there, but it was only this last few weeks I made a stock from waste of peelings, and I saw it on Instagram. So put them all in the freezer, and then like that got enough of them, and then I was like, oh my God, this is way nicer than any stock you'd buy in a packet.
Absolutely, you know, it's great. And you know, like I was up home Donegal there yesterday, and Mum had a roast chicken dinner for us. And I said, Mum, do you know what you do? Can you keep that for me? She says, Maurice, I've got 4 in the freezer waiting for you, like the carcass. I know I'll be back up soon. I'll make a stock out of them. But we make stocks at home. We make different types of Asian soups with them in the class. And one of the kids' favourite is pho. It's like the Vietnamese soup.
Oh yeah.
Oh, they love it. You know, and such intense flavour you get from the chicken bones is great. But that's something we do at work as well. In the IRFU, is we gather all the bones from all the roast chicken we do, and we do quite a bit. We take them out, we make stocks, like 20 litres.
From professional players to professional kitchens, let's hear from Liam. So Liam, tell us all about Positive Carbon and the work you do.
Yeah, so I'm Liam, I'm from Positive Carbon. Positive Carbon provides, in a nutshell, AI food waste monitors. We work with some of the leading food manufacturers, catering companies, hotels in Ireland and the UK. And essentially, we track food waste and we report back on it in real time. Food waste is a huge contributor to greenhouse emissions, the costs, CO2, everything. And we're on a mission to eradicate food waste, essentially.
I know it was set up in 2020, but why was it set up? Like, where did the idea come from?
Yeah, so the founder, Mark, was working in that area in food waste for a company called Food Cloud, and saw that there was a need for a more hardware based solution that would help or give restaurants and cooks and chefs the tools to actually report back on it and see in real time what they're wasting. And that was it. It was born.
Explain to me how AI works with tracking this, because I'm still trying to come to grips with the whole AI thing, and I do find it all quite overwhelming. So how do AI food work together? Yeah.
All right, Meghann, you're a chef and you're working in the kitchen. You're making sausages or bacon, whatever, for breakfast. You'll make what you think you might need. You'll then, at the end of the day or the end of the shift, you'll bring it over to the bin, the positive carbon bin, which will have an AI sensor at the top, and you'll scrape it in. Our sensor will immediately recognise what it is, so it's bacon, sausages, and it'll weigh it, calculate using industry stats, what CO2 it emits and what cost it has. And then that immediately then shows up on your app, so you can then report back on it. So the AI is essentially like a friendly manager overlooking the food production and food waste, and then just reports back.
Okay, so tomorrow then I know to only put on maybe this amount of sausages and this amount of rashers.
Yeah, or you can tell if, say, we had an event on, and then you could track all your events and you could go back and look at each event separately and say, right, well, actually, we overproduce X amount of sandwiches per event by doing it slightly differently or doing something else. We could reduce that.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because you know the whole saying, my eye is bigger than my belly, and you know you're starving and you go into a place and suddenly you order everything you see on the menu because you're so hungry, and then suddenly it comes down and you're like, oh God, I'm actually not that hungry. If I'm the consumer, is it maybe educating me as well about, do I really need to order that extra side? Yeah,
so we literally just came from a hotel today, and a big issue for them is they do buffet breakfasts, and everyone thinks they need 2 croissants, 2 pain au chocolat, 2 bananas, 2 this. And we were going around the kitchen at around 10:30 or the restaurant around 10:30 this morning, the amount of food that was left on the plates. So plate waste is a big issue for us, and we also have plate waste monitors that essentially the guys take that food, they put it on our plate waste monitor, and they can track that plate waste. So this hotel that we worked with, they actually reduced the size of the croissants. Then they found that people were taking too many because they thought, so they've gone for a medium croissant. And they've put placards around, do you really need that extra slice of toast? Do you need X, Y, Z? You know, even for milk, they put all the milk now in little jugs for the cereal, because when people were pouring their own, they were pouring like loads.
Yeah.
So it is about education, yeah.
And then I suppose, what can people do maybe then? Is there any way to positively get rid of the waste? Because I think that's another issue, isn't it? Because I know I have seen places now where they kind of notify you when there's, you know, the end of the day when there's stock left over, and they will sell it off for a lesser price. But you obviously can't put the food that comes from someone's plate into someone else's plate. So what's the way to combat that?
So our AI gamifies it. So we have sort of challenges and games built into the software. So the AI will then recommend recipes that could be used that we more effectively use your ingredients, but also then gives you sort of hints on how to reuse. So like a lot of people use coffee grounds to make brownies and cookies and stuff like that. So we'll try as much as we can sort of suggest how the restaurant or the hotel can reduce the food waste.
Yeah, and it must be really hard for hotels, because when you think about it, you mentioned there the buffets. Like, we all love a buffet, and I know the company was founded in 2020, which of course was locked down, and I think that was the one thing that everyone was complaining about. The buffet wasn't back, and then when it did come back, I think we do get a bit excited when we go up there.
Of course, yeah. I'm exactly like even though I work for the company, if I'm presented with a buffet, I can't help myself.
Super. And how have the Irish industry, the hospitality industry, been taken to it?
Yeah, they've been really positive, and they've taken to it really well. Everyone sort of recognises that food waste is a huge issue. Ireland, I think, produces 750,000 tonnes of food waste a year, and that's split relatively evenly between like households, industry and manufacturing. We've seen studies that say every person in Ireland wastes about 149 kilograms of food a year, I think it is. So it's quite a lot. It costs each household about €700 a year on food waste. That's just on overbuying, maybe not taking into account best before dates or use by dates. And then within the sort of industry that we're working mainly in, overproduction, there's a big issue with, say, when they're producing something on a large scale, if they just get one of the part of that recipe right or wrong, that all needs to be thrown out and they need to start again. So we're tracking all of that data for big manufacturing companies.
No, I'm actually, I said I didn't know too much about it before I sat here beside you, and now I'm going, it just makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And what about your own background then? Like, how did you get into positive carbon?
I was living in London for 10 years and I was working in events. I used to build hotels out of shipping containers and then moved back to run a hotel in Dublin. And throughout that whole hospitality hotel industry saw what was happening with food waste. Food waste was a big thing for, especially in the hotel in London. We had lots of events, 600 to 1,000 people events, and the amount of food waste that we had to throw out was incredible. And then just happened upon Positive Carbon, so they were hiring, and I came on board as the country manager. So
yeah, it's just, I guess, like you mentioned, you worked in those big event spaces, and I know there's obviously huge event spaces now, and I even know with Crow Park, they're trying now to become as sustainable as they can. And, they obviously, for All Ireland Day, 83,500 people? Like, that's a lot of food and a lot of beverages as well. So I guess if you kind of if the bigger places tackle it, maybe it'll filter down.
Yeah, so one of our big stadiums would be the Aviva. So we're working with them, and we have been working with them for the past few years. And we're down to now tracking sort of that waste per ticket holder, essentially. And that data now is helping them plan out what meals they're going to make, where they're going to position their stalls. And we're actually seeing quite a big reduction in food waste. We're also working with the HSE. And without naming one, but one specific hospital actually saw a 95% reduction in their meat, in their beef waste. So,
oh my God.
That then opens up, that's a high value item for them. So yeah, it's been really cool.
Is it just a case though of, as you mentioned there with the hotel, the croissants, I think it backfires them when they try to make them smaller. But is it a case of maybe portion control? But then people, if you put a small plate in front of someone, they're kind of going, where's the rest of it?
Yeah, look, no comment, but Irish people love a big portion.
We do.
Especially in a hotel or a sort of pub environment, it's like stacked high.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is a lot about portion control and potentially helping people realise maybe they don't need just as much food. But then at a price point, if you're paying €22, you expect to have €22 worth of food on your plate. So
is it just kind of maybe a way, so as it's mentioned earlier, like us, the consumer, we kind of maybe have to think about our habits as well?
Yeah, and I think some of the partners that we're really successful with are using our data to filter that back into the consumer journey as well. So educating them, but we have the stats to sort of back it up though, by using Positive Carbon and using sort of clever ways of reducing their food waste. They're able then to communicate that to their customers, and they're seeing a lot more engagement, especially online. And we give them that nice fancy graph to show the progress.
That's Liam with some food for thought, but how about we take a deep dive with Niall? So Niall, you're very welcome, and tell us all about your business and how you got into it.
So my businesses are kind of varied from having restaurants. So I'm a chef restaurateur kind of by trade. And from there, I suppose I've moved into other aspects of it, predominantly being involved in seafood and being a seafood chef. I moved from there into wholesale and kind of other aspects of it there. I suppose it's quite wide and varied, the different fingers and the different fishy pies.
And like sustainable, of course, sustainable seafood.
Yeah, 100%. So I started Sustainable Seafood Ireland back in 2013. I suppose at the time it was as much a mission statement as it was anything else. I started very innocently. All I wanted was line caught cod. That was all. That was that I wanted, because it was the only sustainable way to have cod. And from there, it started to get deeper and deeper into finding out about cod and about finding out about the trophic levels and finding out about predator fish and all just a wealth of different kind of things kind of snowballed from there. I'd begun supplying myself with seafood and kind of getting very close to boats and to fishers and understanding it more and making more kind of informed choices. And then as the years and months kind of went on, I started supplying different friends within the industry. That led to Sustainable Seafood Ireland, SSI, supplying probably about almost 200 restaurants in Ireland, including kind of every kind of Michelin chef and kind of everyone who cared, we'll say, about seafood, about where it came from. And it's changed quite a lot now as well. Mm-hmm. Sustainable Seafood Ireland's actually moved away from wholesale, and we've kind of moved towards an NGO, a not-for-profit model. So Sustainable Seafood Ireland now is trying to kind of do bigger picture things, to try and really kind of understand and promote sustainability. And as you said, it's much bigger than just fish. Sustainability is kind of a part of all of our lives. And with seafood, I suppose the water are kind of muddy. Mm-hmm. The only way to put it, it's not very clear what you're getting and where it's from, and there's a lot of mislabeling and a lot of confusion out there. So part of our path, I suppose, for the future is to try and help people understand what sustainable is and how to make informed choices without getting bamboozled with all the other information that's out there.
You've kind of touched, I guess, on some of it there, but for those who are listening and maybe, like don't know what is sustainable seafood. So, like, can you just maybe enlighten us a little bit more about what would make a seafood dish from a restaurant sustainable versus maybe one that doesn't have a sustainable one?
I suppose one of the big things for us to think about before even looking at restaurants is, how do we eat seafood sustainably? And how you eat seafood sustainably is by eating all of it. So it's about not just eating one or two species. It's about not always wanting, cod and cod and chips, and that's all I'll eat, or only eating this kind of prawn. It's about variety. And it's about, if we were to only eat, beef, to be a massive strain on beef herds. But we eat pretty much everything that moves on the land. And the same approach should be taken to what's in the sea. That's ultimately what's more sustainable for the sea. That we don't focus just on one, because when you take one big piece of it out, like in anything in nature, if you take one big piece out, it leaves a gap, and the ecosystem doesn't work the same way. If you take that, if you take the wolves out of North America, the ecosystem collapses, and it's the very same in the sea.
I want to talk though a bit, still with the food, obviously, in the seafood, but about food waste, because you mentioned when you said there initially about eating all the fish, I thought I kind of first thing that came to mind was when you get a fish, eat all the fish in the plate. But
100%.
yeah, no, that's I suppose another issue too, is like food waste is massive in Ireland.
Food waste is absolutely humongous in Ireland, and again, and eating the whole fish is exactly that. It's eating the varieties, but also eating the whole animal. And we don't. And there's amazing and delicious cuts of a fish that we just don't see. Like I was in New York a couple of years ago, and everywhere you see the collars, all the big salmon collars and the hamachi collar and cod collars, and we sell them in our restaurant all the time. We do them over the grill, and it's a beautiful piece of fish. We've a halibut head going on the menu next week as a kind of a bosam, like a Korean kind of thing, and it's lovely. Like, yeah, 100%. We need to eat the whole animal. You see next to no waste on cattle, for example. From the tallow to the skin to the hide to every part of it, and the same approach, I suppose, needs to be taken for fish, which will obviously it reduces the amount of biomass we need to take out if we're using the full amount of the catch.
But do you find that maybe because seafood, I always think seafood is nearly, in some ways, a little bit more of a luxury, because I feel like it's like this kind of, I think, mentality where some people, I know myself, I prefer not to have to cook fish because I think, I'll do it wrong.
I think a lot of people are afraid to cook fish at home. I think eating more fish at home, I think, would be better. It's better in so many ways, because at the moment it often is seen like a luxury. Like, especially historically in Ireland, if you go to a fish restaurant, it was always going to be a very posh affair, and the crisp linen tablecloth, and the funny knives that nobody knows how to use, and it just got a bit expensive and a bit elitist and a bit unaccessible, which is a shame, because obviously we're an island, and again, when you look at them in Portugal and Spain, and they're just all eating and enjoying it every day and every bit of it at home. But it is, it is quite luxurious. It is wild, after all. It's like if you get wild partridge or pheasant during the season, it's a treat. And if you treat it like so, you can enjoy. I mean, I eat fish maybe 3 or 4 times a week, but I'm in a very lucky position that I love cooking fish and I love eating fish, and I have lots of fish around me all the time, so I have no excuse. I've every reason to.
What do you see as the future for sustainability when it comes to seafood?
There has to be massive shifts of change. There really does, stuff that I'll never be able to achieve, but I'll certainly do everything I can. Like the big boats need to stop. We need to start looking at what times of the year we fish certain areas and closing off bays and regions to allow fish stocks to re-improve. I think everything that we're doing at the moment, I think we're trying to put a plaster on lots of really bad cuts. And in many ways, it's never going to work. We just need to kind of throw the rule book out and really, come together and think about how we're going to be able to enjoy seafood for the future. I do think there is a future in it. I think that there is actually amazing opportunity for Ireland. I mentioned on by Cornwall. I love going over to Cornwall. I love going down the coast there and see all these tiny little villages and towns, and they're thriving. They all have great pubs and but it's all on the back of, that they've got some great fishing boats down there and they sell locally, and it's, it helps the local economy and people have jobs and it brings in tourists and things like that. I think Ireland has that opportunity that we could travel all the way, from Dublin all the way down to Wexford and Waterford and around by the south coast and all the way up, and all the little villages have thriving little kind of fishing communities. So I hope that's part of the future, that we don't lose it. Like, we're in this kind of renaissance period that people are really enjoying seafood and enjoying being an island nation, and maybe for the first time in generations we've remembered that. And so hopefully we keep that, and we keep growing as an island nation.
So that's it for this week's episode of Re-Energize. A huge thanks to our guests. Don't forget to subscribe and spread the word about the show. Don't waste a great podcast. Send it to your friends. We'll see you in 2 weeks for the next episode.
This podcast was produced and recorded by the Podcast Studios for ESB. Production and editing by Connor Reid. Project management by Katie Flannery. Original music by Dan Wilcox. Video editing by Judy Hassett. Graphics and design by Matt Mahon.